In a recent interview with GQ, Anthony Joshua expressed his apparent desire to face off against longtime heavyweight rival Deontay Wilder. He said, quote, "That was the past, why it didn't happen. It will definitely happen. I always say we're in the same division, we're in the same era. That means the fight has to happen. 2023 is looming. It's a big year for boxing. We're all at the top of our division, and that fight will definitely happen and bring a lot of light to the heavyweight division," unquote. Now, his promoter, Eddie Hearn, had the following to say. "Our offer to Deontay Wilder would be, here's an amount of money. If we have to work with cross networks, we have no problem looking at that. Anthony Joshua is exclusive to DAZN. We can look at a dual broadcast. We can look at just making you an offer and contractually you can just accept. I don't know. These fighters also have to look out for themselves and take on opportunities. If fights can't be made in one way, they should look in another way. Contractually, sometimes that's difficult, but if it's not difficult, you have to look at that," unquote. So those are the words of Eddie Hearn. Now let's just dissect what Hearn said there and maybe read between the lines a little bit. He said, "Our offer to Deontay Wilder would be, here's an amount of money. If we have to work with cross networks, we have no problem looking at that." So basically, my interpretation of this is Anthony Joshua cannot fight on another network. That if this fight is to happen, it's probably going to have to be on DAZN, or Eddie Hearn certainly wants it to be on DAZN, or there's the possibility for a dual broadcast. He goes on to say, Anthony Joshua, is exclusive to DAZN. We can look at a dual broadcast. We can look at just making you an offer and contractually you can just accept it. I don't know. That makes it sound like Eddie Hearn is going to tell Deontay Wilder, here's our offer, take it or leave it. That he's not going to be very flexible in the negotiation process. That's not a good sign. And when you look at the fact that Anthony Joshua's lost 3 times now, he's coming off 2 losses. We don't know who he's going to fight next and how he's going to look in his comeback fight. But to be assuming the position of the very firm A side now, after AJ's coming off 2 losses and he's, got 3 losses overall, that's a bit off to me. Yeah, when AJ was still unbeaten, when Wilder wasn't making even a fraction of what AJ was making, yeah, you could act like the A side then. And even then, they gave Wilder a great deal. They offered him a great deal, over $100 million to fight AJ on DAZN. But things have changed since then. AJ isn't in the same position. He's got no belts. The public have lost a lot of confidence in Anthony Joshua. He's not doing the same pay-per-view numbers these days as he was doing several years ago. So, when I hear stuff like this from Eddie Hearn, I kind of have to wince a little bit. Anyway, he goes on to say, these fighters also have to look out for themselves and take on opportunities. I suspect that's a reference to Deontay Wilder turning down that DAZN deal because he was apparently talked out of it by Shelley Finkel, which was a terrible, terrible move for Deontay Wilder to turn that deal down. But in any event, that appears to be maybe a reference to that and a reference also to a future deal, any future deal with Deontay Wilder taking on Anthony Joshua. It would be a take it or leave it type scenario. He says if fights can't be made in one way, they should look in another way. Again, he's basically, my interpretation is telling Deontay Wilder, you're going to have to dance to our tune if you want this Anthony Joshua fight. Anthony Joshua is exclusive to DAZN. We're not going to put him on Fox unless it's a dual broadcast, but priority-wise, it should be an exclusive DAZN fight. Again, he says contractually, sometimes that's difficult, but it's not difficult. But if it's not difficult, you have to look at that. All right. And again, this seems to be talking about where Deontay Wilder's at contractually. Can he fight on another network? If he can, again, I'm sure Eddie Hearn is going to want him to fight AJ on DAZN, if he even wants that fight for AJ at all. There was a time when Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua definitely wanted the Wilder fight. You wouldn't get DAZN to make Wilder that kind of deal if they didn't want the fight. They clearly wanted the fight at that time when AJ was still unbeaten. But now, do they really want it? Still? I have my doubts. I think that Eddie Hearn, or I suspect that Eddie Hearn, thinks that this is AJ's last roll of the dice. And if he takes another loss, maybe he's done. And so if this is the case, then surely they're going to be a lot more cautious this time in maneuvering Anthony Joshua to a world title fight than they were previously. When you're unbeaten, you can roll the dice a bit more with a fighter. And certainly Anthony Joshua's mindset and the ethos was, I want to fight everybody. But once you've taken a few losses, now all of a sudden you're thinking this could be the last roll of the dice. We need to be careful how we match him. A lot more careful than we were in the past. So, I don't know. The stuff coming from Eddie Hearn regarding this Wilder fight to me doesn't sound particularly positive. If he really wanted to make the fight, you'd want to hear about some flexibility. Not all this stuff about, oh, you basically need to do it our way or the fight's not going to happen. Because knowing Deontay Wilder's ego and the way his team have behaved in the past, if you're not going to be at all flexible, then they're probably just going to turn it down because you can't offer them the same amount of money. Think about it. They can't offer Deontay Wilder the $100 million anymore. They can't offer him any world titles. So he's less likely to go for an inflexible deal now than he was then. You know? You can't offer him the kind of things you offered him before. So you're going to have to be more flexible. That's my way of looking at it. But that's not what I'm getting from what Eddie Hearn is saying. And I do wonder whether Anthony Joshua himself even wants this fight right now, given where his confidence is at. Does he really want to go in there with a puncher like Wilder at this stage? Anthony Joshua has found certain things out about himself over the past few years. Namely, that he's not as good as he thought he was. He's found that out. Yeah? Anthony Joshua's confidence now is clearly not what it was when he was unbeaten. It can't be. Right? So, and I'm talking about coming off the 2 losses. Is it possible that he can build his confidence back up and get to the level he was at before, confidence-wise, or surpass it? Anything's possible. But right now, his confidence ain't there. So I've got my doubts as to whether he or Eddie Hearn wants the Wilder fight to happen anytime soon. Maybe they're looking at, waiting for Wilder to fight Andy Ruiz, seeing how he looks in that fight, whether he takes any damage, whether he looks more vulnerable, and then making a decision. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below.